All right, guys. Mr. Lay again. In this video, I am actually gonna go over lesson three quiz, and instead of doing one problem, I'm gonna go over all five of them. Okay, so gonna be number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And remember, lesson 3.3. It is about solving for the equation, but you have to use the distributive properties. So all the problems in here in these lessons, before you solve the problem, we have to use the distributive property, and then if we have to combine like terms, we're gonna have to do that to both sides of the equation before we use inverse operation. Okay, so let's get right into it. Let's go with number 1. Alright, so let me sniff this over real quick. Since we're gonna do it one at a time, so let's go with number 1 first. Okay, number 1 is a multiple choice. Although I say it's a multiple choice, but it's always good to work out the problem first before you choose your answer. Okay, so what is the solution of this equation right here? What is the solution of this equation? If you guys want, you can take the answer to each of to these equations. Matter of fact, this is a B right here. Okay, you can take all these answers, you can substitute into the X, and you can use your calculator and trying to figure out which of these answers will satisfy the equation, will give you the left hand side equal to the right hand side. But sometimes that take too long, and we're just gonna go and solve for this equation. Okay, so first thing first, I always tell you to do is every time you have an equation, it's always good to rewrite the equation. Okay, so I'm gonna rewrite this equation, and I'm gonna bring it right over here so we can solve it. Okay, you see there's the parentheses. Okay, you can't do anything inside these parentheses because they are not like terms, so we cannot combine them. So we're now going to have to use the distribute property. So I'm going to distribute -4 to 3 over 2x. So -4 times 3 over 2x is going to give you -12 over 2x. Okay, remember 4 times 3 is 12, and under the 4 is a 1, so 1 times 2 is 2. All right, -4 times -1/2. A negative times a negative is a positive. -4 times -1 is +4, and that will be 4 over 2 equal -15. All right, there you go. Okay, let's see if we can simplify. Let's see if we can clean up the equation first before we even try to solve for x. Well, -12 divided by 2 is -6. Oh, that's awesome. That is so cool, right? Nice number. Plus 4 divided by 2 is 2, equal to -15. Okay, all these fractions over here turn into very nice equations, nice and simple. -6x plus 2 equal -15. So how do we solve for x in this problem? Well, to solve for x in this problem, first things we have to do is to get rid of this 2. And to get rid of this 2, I'm going to go ahead and subtract the left side by 2. Whatever you do to one side of the equation, you do the same thing to the other side of the equation. And that will be equal to that. Okay. This, what happened to 2 minus 2 is all gone. Turn to 0. Bring down the -6x. Bring down the equal sign. -15 minus 2. So think like -15 is mean like you owe somebody $15, and then you borrow another $2. Right? -2. So you owe that person the total of -$15. Or if you're a football player, just imagine you lost 15 yards on the first play, and then you lost another 2 yards on the second play. So you third down right now is you at 17 yards. Okay, you lost 17 yards total. All right, to solve for x in this problem, -6 times x, -6 times x. Then you have to divide both sides by -6. Have a lot of students, or quite a few of you guys, instead of dividing, you add the 6 because you see there's a negative. Now remember, that's negative. The negative here is mean the 6 is the negative. It's not an operation, but the sign is a -6. It's -6 times y times x. So to solve for x, you divide by -6. All right, -6 divided by -6 is +1. Okay, this whole thing become +1. 1 times x is just x. Okay, now we don't want to change that color. 1 times x is x. All right, and negative divided by negative is positive, so that becomes 17/6. All right, and which one is the answer for 17/6? All right, the answer is D right here. That is D. Okay. Okay, so there is number 1. Let's go to number 2. All right, number 2. It is the question number 2. So I'm going to speed it up a little bit, okay, guys, because we don't want to make the video too long. Okay, -1/4 or -1/4 times x minus 26 equal -200, and then solve for x. So let's go straight to the problem. -1/4 times x, and that will give you -1/4x. -1/4 times -26. Negative times a negative is a positive. 1 times 6 is 26. That will give me 26/4 equal -200. Okay. Now, did you know that if you multiply the whole entire equation by 4, you can get rid of the denominator here in the bottom? That's one way to do it. But we're not going to do that yet because we just don't want to confuse you yet. But for those of you who understand what I'm talking about, you can pause the video and you can give it a try. But we're just going to go ahead and continue what you have learned so far in our class. Okay. So the next step that we need to do is to get rid of this 26/4. So we're going to go ahead and subtract 26/4. Now, the reason I don't simplify 26/4 is because 26 divided by 4, it won't give you a whole number. So I'd rather to leave as a fraction for now. So I'm going to bring over here -26/4. All right. Okay, so this 26/4 minus 26/4 is 0. Cancel out. So now you have -1/4x equal -200 minus 26/4. Okay, so now how do we take -200 minus 26/4? -200 minus 26/4. I'm going to turn -200, turn that into -200/1, which is the same thing with -200. The reason I do that, so I can find the common denominator so I can subtract them. Okay, so to find a common denominator of 1 and 4 is 4. So I'm going to multiply 1 times 4, and then I'm going to take -200 times 4. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so now we're going to have, here, let me take this whole thing. If you guys don't mind, I'm going to take this whole thing. I'm going to bring it over here so I have more space. All right there. Okay. All right, so I'm going to have -1/4 times x equal -800/4 minus 26/4. Okay. Again, -200 times 4 is -800. 1 times 4 is 4. You can always use your calculator to double check that. So we have -1/4 x equal to what? -800 minus 26. So just imagine you borrow somebody $800 and then you borrow another $26. So you owe that person negative $826 over 4. All right. And again, it looked like negative 826 over 4. You want to turn that, you want to simplify that, you can go ahead and do that if you want to. You can always use your calculator to help. But I see there's a 4 here, there's another 4 over here. So I know that when I get rid of the x, the 4 is going to be gone. Okay, so let me show you what I meant by the 4 is going to be gone. Because if I want to get the x by itself, it means I have to divide both sides by negative 1 over 4, which is the same thing with multiplied by the reciprocal of negative 1 over 4, and that would be negative 4 over 1. Okay, so all I'm doing here is to get x alone, I divide both sides by negative 1 over 4, but when you divide fractions, you can multiply by the reciprocal of that fraction to reduce that to 1. Okay, so just think of negative 4 times negative 1 is 4. 1 times 4 is 4. So 4 over 4 is 1. So you have 1x, and that's just x. And then over here, same thing. I had to multiply that by negative 4 over 1. And the 4 right here, the 4, you can think of this 4 is also can be reduced to this 4, because you have a 4 in the numerator and 4 in the denominator. That's going to turn into a 1. And negative times a negative is a positive. That's going to give you positive 826. Okay, there you go. So that is the answer to number 2.